What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to keep things short, sweet, and simple, and I'm going to talk about chatterbait tips for fishing in the late fall and winter period, because chatterbaits are still just as effective in those periods as they are throughout the summer, the spring, and the fall, but you have to know how to modify them to catch more fish. So that's what I'm going to break down right here, right now. Stay tuned, you're not going to want to miss it. So it's no secret that a chatterbait is pretty much everybody's favorite cranking, winding style bait. It catches giant fish and it does an excellent job at covering water and finding those active fish. But if you try to fish a chatterbait the same way you do the rest of the year into the late fall and winter period, you're not going to get a lot of bites. And by not a lot of bites, you're probably not going to get hardly any bites, because if you try to throw the same style trailers that you've thrown the rest of the year and fish that chatterbait the same way, it's just not going to work out. Those fish don't respond the same way. They get cold, they get sluggish. And so what do we do when fish get cold and they get sluggish? You have to slow things down, and that's the same thing you have to do with your chatterbait. And so the ones I'm going to be talking about are the Z-Man Elite and the Z-Man Jackhammer, but you can pick whatever chatterbaits you like. Thunder Crickets are really good, Slobber Knockers are good, but these are just my absolute favorite ones, so that's what I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to relate it to a bunch of different trailers that I have out in front of me and how I like to fish it in order to slow them down. So typically when you're fishing a chatterbait, you're either running a split tail grub, or Z-Man came out with that new chatter spikes, some type of bait fish sleek style trailer. That's what everybody loves to throw. Gives the tail great action, but it moves it too fast for this wintertime period. And so what I like to do for the wintertime period is a couple different things. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch up the trailers that I throw on my chatterbait. And so what I do is I add a paddle tail to the chatterbait, and you can see I have it rigged upside down here. It gives it a ton more swing, and that more action and that more swing that tail has, the more it slows that chatterbait down, and you can really start to crawl it. The other thing I like to do is normally I like to fish a 1/2 ounce chatterbait, but I'm going to downsize and go to a 3/8 ounce chatterbait, because what that also does is that forces me to slow down. I also change the reel that I throw it on. Normally I like a 7-to-1 gear ratio reel. I'm going to downsize it to a 6-4-to-1 gear ratio reel, because I'm still going to be going at the same pace that I like to throw a chatterbait at, but because I have a slower reel, it forces it to slow down without me even realizing it. Because we all get in that same mode where you're winding, but if you slow your reel down, now that bait's moving even slower, which is going to save you in the long run. I also normally throw a 7-1 Invoker medium heavy regular action rod, which is kind of like a middle of the road. It's not necessarily a cranking style rod, but it's not a real stiff rod, right? It's like a great spinnerbait, chatterbait rod, but it has a little bit more backbone. What I do is I switch up and I go to more of a crankbait style rod. I'll switch up and I go to a 7-4 arc in Arc Essence. I'll have everything linked down below like I always do. I switch up and I go to that 7-4 Arc Essence because it's more parabolic. And what that means is it loads up slower. And so those fish, when they come up behind it and eat it, it gives them more of a chance to get it before I set the hook. So that way when I lean on them, I'm still going to get those fish, but it's going to be more foolproof for me, because those fish are still up there, they're still shallow, but you just don't get as many bites and they're slower. So I want something that slows me down just as much as the fish are slowed down, so that way I have an equal opportunity to catch those fish, so that way I don't miss bites because I set too early. And you'll know you're setting too early if you start to hook the fish on the outside, like the very edge of the mouth. That's how you know you might want to go to a more parabolic style rod, because all it takes is skin hooking one 7-pounder to make you hate the rod you're throwing. So do yourself a favor and go to a more parabolic style rod, and you'll know you're doing the right thing when they have that chatterbait in the roof of their mouth. Now, let's talk about fishing it in general. So it's going to be difficult to throw a chatterbait because this time of year you're not going to get a lot of bites. But the bites you do get are all going to be big fish. You're not going to get a lot of 12-inchers to 2-pounders. You're going to get a lot more in that 3 to whatever your highest weight fish is, you know. This is the time of year where big fish feed more than little fish. Little fish just seem more sluggish. Cold water affects them more than big fish for whatever reason. I don't know the exact metabolic process, but it slows little fish down more. So you're going to get big fish, but that means you have to be in the big fish mindset. You have to be fishing around pieces of cover. You have to be fishing around areas with deep water access. You have to be fishing around areas with the warmest possible water that you're going to have. And you have to know going into it that I'm only going to get 4 to 7 bites. But those 4 to 7 bites are going to make it 100% worth it in the long run. And so that's what I'm going to do to slow my chatterbaits down and make sure that I'm still getting the bites that I need and making sure that I'm landing those bites. So if you like today's content, be sure to hit that subscribe button to follow on with the channel. But thank you guys so much for watching. God bless, and I'll see you in the next video.